Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thrivecast. We are pumped to talk to a bunch of firm owners, really, all over the world, and we bring people that know how accountants think and act and run businesses or don't run their business the way they're supposed to. And that's what we're all trying to do is learn from our guests. And if you live under a rock, you may not have heard of Rob Nixon, but if you don't, Rob Nixon is somebody that you would be familiar with. And he has been doing this, I don't know his bio, he's been doing this forever and it really has traveled the world, educated 200,000 accountants, 18 countries, just has product strategies, reports, benchmarking reports for accountants, coaching, and really has added $1.5 billion in new profit to accounting firms all over the world, and that is pretty special. So, Rob, thanks for coming on the Thrivecast, man.
Great to be here.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Rob, in your bio, you say very specifically, I'm not an accountant, but man, the changes you have made to the profession all over the world. Of course, you've started, I guess your home base is still Australia, but you've done this all over the world. Why did you get into accounting? And you're hanging out with accountants. How did that happen?
I think that's the most asked question of me. Why accountant?
Right.
So I was 24 in May 1994. I was running a seminar business, bums on seats. And anyway, I was going broke a million miles an hour, and an accountant turned up one day, and he said, "This is awesome." It was a customer service seminar. "Will you come to my town and do this for my clients?" I said, "Where do you live?" And a little tiny town called Coonamble, New South Wales, Australia. I lived in a place called Dubbo. It was a 2-accountant town, 3,500 population, middle of nowhere. I said, "How many clients have you got?" Ellis Ryan's his name. 126 clients. I said, "Cool. Well, let's invite them to this seminar, charge them a small fee." Anyway, 56 people turn up, and I'm thinking, wow, I can't fill a room, but these accountants can. And that started my journey of going to accountants, initially as a channel to put butts on seats. And then I fell in love with the profession because I left school when I was 16. And I've been there ever since, 30.5 years. God. Well, by the time this podcast comes out, probably 31 years. Who knows?
That is amazing. Well, we both serve accountants, and there's a difference in a live seminar, an online program, coaching one-on-one. So all of that is different ways to serve. Do you like one more than the other? Which one is most impactful maybe to firms, do you think?
Yeah, so I've gone through the whole gamut after 30 years of live seminar, big conference, webinars, product in a box, software, one-on-one consulting, coaching, reports, content, books, 4 books written. I've done just about every medium of education to accountants. And the one that gets the biggest impact is the coaching aspect, where you hold them accountable.
Okay.
You work with them. It's more labor intensive on both sides, but that's where the results come. So your figure that you mentioned, 1.5 billion, is now pushing they're from the coaching clients, pushing 2 billion in extra profit from the coaching clients. Like we've got product in 50 countries, we believe. We don't know how many countries. We know it's over 50. I've worked in 18 countries. And when you just deliver content via, even today, right, we'll deliver some content.
Right.
There's a small burst of activity after it. Oh, that's pretty cool. I'll do that bit. But you won't get the full impact unless you immerse yourself in that and really be held accountable to that and work with someone to help you implement that. So, the one with the biggest impact is definitely the coaching, but there's oodles of content available.
Yeah. Well, if you read your bio, everywhere you have this online, you make a commitment to the accounting profession. You say, "I believe in you. I believe in them. You are great." You have this list of like 7 different things you believe about accountants, and one of them is accountants, they don't make enough money for how smart they are. And
No.
Why is that? Why don't we do that?
So first of all, they make good money. The accounting profession is one of the most profitable, if you call it industry/profession in the world, percentage profit. But in the scheme of things, our latest benchmark report showed median profit of about $500,000 per partner. Now, granted, firms that go in a benchmark report are typically better quality firms anyway. So that is not representative of the whole profession.
Okay, that makes sense.
I've been doing benchmark reports since 2001, and it's always a higher number. But even still, right, that is profit before partner salaries. That is profit before working capital, before taxation, etc. So it's not what they take home, of course. And so there might be $300,000 they can get their hands on, for example, per partner. That is not a lot of money for the risk that they take, for the value mainly that they add. Like you think about accountants, the value they add to their clients, the messes they get their clients out of, the tax they save them, the help they give them on cash flow management, on profit improvement, restructuring their businesses, learning about the latest changes to the taxation law so that the client's better off. The client, for what the client pays, the client is far better off on an ROI than the accountant is, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about pricing, because that's one tactic, of course, but it's about being fairly compensated for the effort they put in, because they work hard, big hours, and the value that they add and the risks that they take being in business. So, I don't believe they earn anywhere near enough.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things you tie together. You want accountants to make more money, but you want them to work less hours.
Yes.
And that seems counterintuitive. It's like, well, how do you work less hours and make more money? Like, what's the connection there, or the disconnect people think about that?
Yeah, so our brand promise, and it's been my brand promise for a long, long time, which is more than $1 million profit per partner after tax, partners working less than 500 client delivery hours, right? And even then, we're changing that pretty soon too to be less than that. So it's the difference. Like, we take a firm through 3 stages. They typically start when we find them, when we work with them, as a practice owner, a practitioner practicing their craft. They've grown up in the profession. They're now a partner. They've either bought into the firm they've worked at, or they've started their own firm. And the revenue and most of the profit lands on the partner's shoulders, right? They're grinding it out, making decent money, but they're grinding. They're working big hours, right? That's level 1. Level 2. Level 2 is, so level 1 is where they're spending a lot of time working in the business, right? Level 2 is where we say, let's turn you into a business owner, number 2, right? And the business owner is it's not just a mindset, it starts there, but it's an activity switch as well, to spend more time as the owner working on the business and in the business. So trading, working in, doing what the business does, to working on, Michael Gerber coined that phrase 40 years ago nearly, growing, developing the business. And so that flip, once they spend more time working on it, growing and developing it, getting more leverage, then they start to make more money and have more time, right? But level 3 is where some firms want to get to, what we call investor level. And this is where, for firms that want to create an asset that lives beyond them, is where we get the partners out of every single job. We leverage them out of every single job, and they become an owner but not an operator. And so they've hired in marketing, they've hired in sales, they've hired in firm administration and business management, they've hired in senior tax roles that they used to do, they've hired in client relationship managers, get rid of the client relationships, and now we've gotten rid of all the activities on the partner's plate. Now they've got an asset that produces, right, and produces and produces and produces, and now they can create generational wealth. Why would you sell that, right? You wouldn't sell it. You just need to manage it, or even just advise your manager, on a monthly flash report, or weekly flash report, and a monthly meeting. How's it all going? Keep doing what you're doing. I'm in Paris having fun, wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
So there is a shift, and the accounting profession is as I study different businesses around the world, the accounting profession is one of them where the partners do not need to be doing the work, right? Legal profession, a bit different. The senior lawyers are in there as producers. The partners of stock standard accounting firms, I'm not talking consulting firms, high-end advisory firms typically get rests on the partner's shoulders. I'm talking about an accounting business where the partners can get themselves at every single job.
No, yeah, that's incredible. Is that a certain size? Like, would you say We need you to build it big enough to have it, if you hit 20 team members, you're going to start to be able to exit all of these things. Are you looking at a team member size or a revenue size where that's really going to phase 3 will start to transition?
Smallest firm I've seen do this is about $2 million in revenue to get to. So we're talking about 0 partner chargeable time, right? We're talking about 0 partner firm administration time, 0 partner marketing time, 0 partner sales time, 0 partner doing anything time, right? The smallest is about 2 million I've seen so far. We've got a few right now, 2 to 3 million in revenue, so about 12, 13 people or so. Can definitely be done around that size.
Okay, so it kind of depends. What do you think about? I'm just going to ask you a bunch of random stuff about the accounting profession. This is going to be great. Like acquisitions, like if they're not quite large enough, because organically growth, that's a little bit slower, and they're like, okay, Rob, I hear you. Let me go buy a couple of small firms and get up to that size. Are you for acquisitions or not, or is it just a different way to grow?
Yes and no. Right? There's a yes and no. There's no easy answer to that one as far as because it does depend. So, for example, if you are a niche market provider, like let's say all your clients are veterinarians, right? And auto shops or whatever your niche is, right? In America, you'd say your niche, right? But in Australia, there's no T in niche, right? So
it's niche.
It's niche, right? Niche.
Niche.
If you had a niche market client base, it would make sense to buy another client base exactly the same, as far as all veterinarians, for example. If you are non-niche, but you want A-class clients, right, and you go and buy, let's say you're $1.5 million in revenue, you want to buy $500,000 to get to $2 million. The problem is you don't know what you're buying, right? And you're paying dollar for dollar, $25, $50 in the revenue. You're prepared to pay $500,000 to buy $500,000 in fees, and you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
$500,000 goes a long, long way in marketing to find those 50, 10 grand clients that are perfect fit for you. So it is a fast way to grow, but compared to marketing and good, solid, proper direct response marketing, I think it's faster for sure, but more expensive than marketing.
And riskier.
Riskier.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Now, but so that makes sense for marketing, but are accounting firms, are they really great at marketing? Like what if they do spend money on marketing, but they just are not, it's not creating the organic growth? I mean, that could be a result.
So let's talk about this, right? Accountants are lousy at marketing, right? They're bad at marketing, right? Partners of accounting firms are great at accepting referrals. They'll get a 90% conversion rate or more, but that's not marketing. That's just leaving it to chance that your clients refer. The firms that hire marketing professionals within their firm, right, a marketing manager, marketing coordinator, those are the ones that will grow and grow and grow and grow and grow to whatever size they want to grow. Don't expect the partners of the firm to be marketers. They are not there. They're business owners and they're accountants.
Okay, so that's probably a little bit of a mistake we make, right? Organically grow, and we have accounting partners doing a lot of the marketing. You're saying, no, that's also a role you probably need to invest in and pull, even if you outsource it, I guess, right?
Well, the nirvana of outsourcing marketing function is not a fractional CMO or a fractional marketing manager. The nirvana is a pay per lead, turn up to meeting service. And we're on the hunt for them all the time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the vast majority of outsourced marketing companies for accounting firms do not generate what the accountants want, and that is leads, fresh meetings of fresh prospects, right? They'll do an awesome job rebranding. There's a firm not too far from where you live, right, that spent $250,000 on a marketing agency, just 1 hour down the road from you, because I know where you are, right? 1 hour down the road, and they spent $250,000 on a marketing company. They look fabulous. Branding is fabulous. The whole look and feel of the place is fabulous. 0 leads, not 1 lead.
$250,000.
$250,000, you hire a person for 70 or 80, 100,000, 120, a direct response marketing person, and they will spend money but generate you leads, which is what you want. So there's a far better success when you hire the right people internally, just like you hire the right tax manager, to getting leads to in front of prospects for new business.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I want to ask you. I keep asking you a bunch of random things. So
Go for it.
Yeah, I believe this is right. Australia, the accountancy market in Australia, 5-7 years kind of ahead of a lot of the world, right? Ahead of the U.S. and the U.K. in terms of modernization and a lot of these things that we're talking about. So I think that part of the world kind of led the way. And so I think probably private equity came into Australia in accounting markets earlier than it's coming into the U.S. now. But I don't know if that's exactly right. But you may have already experienced what we are now going through where private equity is purchasing all of our firms. So tell us how that worked out in Australia.
All right. So it wasn't private equity. This started in about 1990, because I started my career in 94, as I mentioned, about 96, 98. They were called the consolidators. And the consolidators was either one largish firm that made a promise to other small accounting firms that if we roll you up, we'll get a collective $100 million in fees and we'll list that entity on the stock exchange. And many of these did that, right? And away they go. This became an potential exit for the partners of the $2 or $3 million firm. They're going to get a check, right? And they're going to be employees of the bigger entity on the stock exchange. The 100% buyout of that did not work because what happened was, and there's a few models here, we've got a very successful one, which I'll talk about in Australia. What happened was the partners got their $1.5 million check for their equity stake. They paid off the house. Now they're on a job for $200,000 a year, and they literally checked out. And so consequently, right, the consolidated groups weren't buying firms that were at that investor level, as I mentioned. They were buying practice owners where the relationships were held by the partners. And so consequently, they checked out and many of them just didn't survive, right? There was one largish one in Australia that really morphed into a financial planning business, wealth creation, and started accounting. And now more financial planning, so sell through for different services, insurance, wealth management. That was the model. There's another model that has worked very well in Australia where they didn't buy 100%, they bought 51%. So they bought 51% of the firm and listed entity. They've grown exponentially. It's a business called Kelly Partners. Actually, Brett called me last year and he said, I'm rereading all of my great texts and giving the authors a thank you call. And I was one of those, which is nice. All the authors that have shaped his life. And he was telling me the numbers. It was like 23% year-on-year growth ever since the last 15 years. And I remember when Brett was like less than $1 million in revenue. Now he's well over 100 million publicly traded. That's another model. And that incentivized the partners to stick around and have an equity stake in the mothership. Private equity typically are going to buy either the entire show or 70 or 80%, and they're going to buy larger firms. But the buyer beware, the check arriving is very dazzling. The buyer beware is what happens to that firm, right? What happens to the behavior of the partners, specifically the partners, because they get in the check, when private equity takes over. So yet to be seen.
Okay.
Yet to be seen how this all unfolds.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of what we're saying in the U.S. It's yet to be seen. But we are seeing for some firms, because a lot of them are in the platform building process of bringing a firm in and bringing other firms in, other brands, and kind of leveraging a lot of the efficiencies around the technology platforms and the leadership and things like that. So private equity is helping some. It's funding their growth. And then some are being purchased and they're checking out. And then the private equity is trying to just stick operators inside of an accounting business, which is a heavily relational business. And so some people are right now going, we'll see. We don't know what's going to happen. Of course, a lot of those private equity may roll those up into other larger sales at later points. And some of that's not quite happened yet. And of course, it's happening at the upper end of our market too. So very, very large firms. And so I think it's just we'll see.
Well, Jason, my sweet spot of size is sort of 1 to 10 million in revenue, not the big end, not the tiny end. And I look at those size firms that say 2, 3, 4 partners. They can, and everyone's thinking about exit, right? So how do I get out of this thing, right? You can, over a multi-year period, build a business that works without the partners. So if you could do that, and let's say you got it to 5 million with 2 partners, for example, or 7 or 8 million. Here's an example. I started with this firm 6 years ago. They were at 3.2. They just hit 10. They're still a 2-partner firm. The partners don't do any work, right? They've got 35 folks doing 10 million. It prints cash. They'll never kill it. Business manager runs it. Marketing person does it. They've just hired a salesperson as well. It just grows and grows and grows and grows. Why? If you can get it to $5-6 million with growth and get yourself out of the jobs, why would you sell that? Why would you sell it to anyone? It's producing $2 or $3 million in profit. Just keep owning the profit.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I asked a firm owner that had a firm about that size, and it's like they were large enough to be attractive to private equity. And I did ask the founding partner, why won't you sell? He's like, why would I? He said the same thing. He's like, this is kind of working, and I'm not having to stay in the weeds anymore, and it's my firm producing the profit. And so that model makes sense. But the private equity money is so attractive. Yeah, it's that dazzling check, as you said. Yeah. But then what comes after that, right? So that's a thing to consider. So
what comes after it is a job. Right. What comes after it is a job. You were maybe an entrepreneurial partner. You were a business owner, and now you've got a job you're now working with a man, with a woman, right? As the phrase goes.
Yeah, yeah. And entrepreneurial partners who have to get a job are really not great employees. Like I'm not employable as it stands in my career, and you probably aren't either.
No.
Well, cool. So some other things I think the Australian market did is really switched towards a lot of value-based pricing. I think moved away from time tracking a long time ago. And of course, we know not all firms did that, but I think Australia did start making moves. Firms did start making moves in that direction a long time ago. And of course, the U.S. has been doing that a long time too, the U.K. and Western-based cultures. Is that right? Like Australia really started that? Or what's your perspective on this moving away from time billing?
Yeah, so first of all, I love moving away from time-based billing. It's a very inefficient system. It's fraught with all sorts of problems. It is bad for the client, bad for the firm, bad for team morale. It's all about more billable hours, more chargeable time. It's all bad, 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 right? So that's the first thing. And I've been saying that for as long as I've been talking to accountants. In my first book, which was Accounting Practices Don't Add Up, came out 14 years ago, I actually said something which was wrong in there. And that is, go to upfront pricing, whether it be value-based or finger in the wind or however you come to the number, and ditch the timesheet, right? I was completely wrong. I've found very, very few firms that by ditching timesheets are better off for it. So instead, let's ditch the hourly rates, but keep the timesheet so we can measure, right? Let's say $1 an hour, cent a unit. We can just measure how much time went into the job and not price it based on anything that looks like an hourly rate, right? So that is, as we work with firms, a far better way to manage efficiency. So let's say, for example, the old system was my rate is 200. I've got 25 hours of time, therefore $5,000 job. Why not? Let's repackage the $5,000 into a monthly fixed fee, monthly recurring revenue, and then call it $500 a month or whatever. Yeah. And now we're get rid of the hourly rate, keep the time sheet, and now let's reduce the time as much as possible with tech, with better process, and on the output is a higher margin of average hourly rate. So then we go and refill the capacity that we saved with higher value services and products, which will be priced based on value contribution, Because the first one, the $5,000 job, might have been last year's job plus a little bit, and the client has price parity and service parity. But the new job that they've bought before, a new project, that we can price based on the value contribution of the client. So did Australia lead the charge on that? I don't know. But value pricing is something that we need to get our head around. But the first step before that is pricing everything up front on a project basis, getting paid before you start, or ideally for known work and known entities, including tax planning package, including uncapped, unmetered phone calls, emails, meetings, a monthly fixed fee. So you end up with a monthly recurring revenue subscription model, which is far more valuable, far better for all parties.
Yeah. So you're separating the input of time from the pricing to the client. You're still doing both of those, and one is for measurement. We see some firms doing that. They do price, not based upon time, and they do track time, but they don't use the track time data. They don't actually analyze it in a way, and of course it's a big bucket of data. So somebody's got to be in there and massaging that stuff, and they just never get around to some of that practice management goodness. And maybe that is where we would find them not pulling any value out of that data. I don't know.
Yeah, so we look at price the job up front, hours budget on the job, which is a maximum hours budget. Then I'm going to beat the budget, so called TUB, time under budget. We had a firm in Canada did this for a year. And they called it TUPY, TUPY, time under prior year. And so they had a goal, firm just south of Toronto. They had a goal to 20% time under prior year and refill the 20% to get to $5 million in revenue. And if we did that, team of 30 or so, if we did that, the entire team in January would go to Mexico for a vacation, right? Anyway, good incentive. January in Toronto, not great, right? And so they did. They got the 20% because they were using that data to focus on time under, and they refilled the capacity that they created and got to $5 million. Team were off to Mexico. They went. January just passed. So yeah, you've got to measure that data, use the data, and refill the data. Because what happened? Talk about innovation, Jason. What happened in New Zealand? And this was a really interesting test. So I was tracking the profit per partner in New Zealand for 16 years, average profit per partner. And I've got this graph that shows the time when cloud accounting as an efficiency tool turned up. Cloud accounting turned up in 2008, first in New Zealand, then Australia, then the UK. And I'm talking pure cloud. I'm not talking hosted cloud, right? Hosted cloud is not cloud, right?
That's right.
That is hosted, right? Cloud is cloud on a browser, right? And so your QBOs, your zeros, etc. And what happened was the profit per partner with the introduction of an efficiency tool like cloud accounting in the client base effectively went backwards. It flatlined over the next 8 years, where they should have been increasing, right? And we dug a bit deeper as to why. Because we know that if we switch all of our clients across to a better accounting platform that integrates with the practice management system of the firm, we'll get more efficient, time down, right? And we've seen up to 70 or 80% time down in some cases, but 30, 40% pretty easy on efficiency with this like-for-like job. And so we dug a bit deeper. Why did the accounting profession in New Zealand go backwards on profit per partner? What happened was they weren't pricing jobs up front. So if the time went down by 50% and they had an hourly rate on the time, they'd have to double the hourly rates to make the same money. That was the first problem, right? Second problem, because they were getting more efficient. Second problem is they weren't refilling the capacity, right? So the price effectively went down with it, and they had capacity but didn't refill it, right? So they didn't look at value-added service. And the third problem, which if they weren't going to refill the capacity, they didn't downsize their team and cut costs. So consequently, they went backwards. So that's a little coming to you from the future speech.
Okay, that's very cool. Okay, well that'll lead us to our great next report. So I want to take a quick sponsor break, and then we'll come right back. I'm excited to share Bill as an exclusive sponsor of the Thrivecast. They have been sponsoring the Thrivecast for so long. Thank you, Bill. Our firm has been using Bill for over a decade now. We actually use it in all of our foundational CFO and controllership engagements. We have to turn all of our clients' financial processes digital, and we do that with Bill. And you can check out some webinars and blogs and even toolkits that I build with Bill to help in your firm. So thank you, Bill, for being a sponsor of the Thrivecast. Okay, so Rob, one thing you do, so we kind of just talk generally about, firms up front, but you have this accountant's benchmark report and sustainability index. You have a lot of different things, and benchmark reports, they're so helpful to professions, right? I don't know. We're not big in asking firms to copy each other. We want them to be innovative and create their own paths forward. But benchmarking does help you go, where am I in terms of this profession? And it was interesting. I don't know. How long have you been doing that benchmark report?
The one you'll see, the 2024 model, that's year 3 in the USA. But we've been doing, I did start in 01 with benchmark reports in Australia, a benchmark report that still exists in Australia, sold out of the company many, many years ago, is called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of the Accounting Profession. 20-something years later, it still exists. But 3 years ago, I was actually in hospital. I nearly died, right?
Oh, my gosh.
For another conversation. And I was thinking, why aren't I doing the benchmark report in the United States? And so we decided to kick that off straight away. We've done 3 now. Every year it gets bigger as far as participants. It gets stronger. We're doing it again next year as far as 2025, I think when this podcast comes out. And we get firms to contribute the 2024 data, for example, but we analyze it a bit differently. We want to put it in a different spin, put some advice in there, put some content in there, and show firms in different metrics what they should be looking for. And one of them, as you mentioned, is what I invented called the Sustainability Index. So yeah, it's a labor of love. It's a intensive labor piece, but very, very worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, those benchmark reports, they take a lot of work. So we know people that do some of those. We know some people from Carbon, and they do some of their types of benchmarking and professional reports, and it just takes a lot of work to kind of survey everybody and then analyze it, and then of course you've got to do the analysis and the write-up. But some things you did find is efficiency is huge, right? Like that is going to be a huge win for a firm to move forward. And you kind of say that results in a higher average hourly rate. So what does efficiency mean? I mean, I think we know, but what would you call it for a firm? What should they do to become more efficient?
Yeah, so let's look at terms first. We've got utilization or productivity, right? Typically, that's going to be I pay you for 2,000. How many hours did you send out the door, right? Call it 1,500 for the year, which is still way too many, I believe. Anyway, let's call that right. So that's that. And then efficiency is all about speed. So how quick did we get this job done with accuracy in 2 areas? One was the time on the job, right? How much time on the job. And the second piece is how long was the job in the shop for? So turnaround time. So both factors of efficiency. Firms inherently know that they're not as efficient as they possibly could be, right? And to me, that's a massive opportunity when they're saying we are inefficient, and we'll just randomly ask firms, how much more efficiency just from the get-go do you believe you could be? And they'll go 20%, right? 20, 30%. What that means is the partners can see we should be 20% less time on job, right? If we're punching 10,000 hours out the door right now per year, we should be only punching 8,000 or less for the same revenue. And so this becomes a big focus. Well, how do we fix that, right? We have a really cool training for our member firms we coach. It's a 25-step workflow program. It's all about workflow process, right? And the objective is time down, time off. Like that firm in Canada, TUPE, time under prior year. It is faster throughput. It is faster, less time on job with the same accuracy. And when it's priced up front, you get the capacity and you get the margin on the job.
That makes sense. So, and one thing you do, you say by improving workflow management, they can achieve a 20% increase in efficiency. And it's through this 25-point process. In software, obviously, is going to be a big part of what you would suggest that they use. And that is becoming better and better in our profession. Workflow management software is becoming better and better. Would you agree with that?
So all of our processes, all of our methods, strategies are software agnostic with one criteria.
Okay.
Right? The one criteria on software is it must be cloud software.
For sure.
Right? And it must, with the software with cloud, client and you interact with each other. Because there's three, if you look at what accountants do every day, right? Accountants do two things every day. They check and process work. Check and process, check and process, check and process. Why do they have to check the work? As in, let's say the client has a bookkeeper or whatever, could be a family member or someone else. The accountants don't believe it. So they might as well have done it themselves, right? So bad data comes in from the client. Bad data, including paper or PDFs of bad data. It's lumpy data. Then the accountants check it. Then they process the work. So the inefficiencies start at the client base. Then they go to the accounting business as well. The inefficiencies, multiple ways to do the same things, and the process that they do it with. And then to the government agencies, they're also efficient. So you've got this multi-inefficient system. So it's not about software, it's about the way the data is handled all the way through the system.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But a lot of our teams struggle personally to be efficient because what we found, and our firm has been virtual since 2012, and of course there are a lot of virtual firms now that weren't virtual when you and I have been doing this for both 30 years, and that they didn't used to be virtual. That was unheard of. And so a lot of firms, a lot of more modern firms are very virtual, and it is really hard to help your team stay focused inside their house in their living room, working with their children running around. The virtual started to sound really cool and great, and efficiency seems to have taken a hit from anecdotally from just the things we hear about in our communities. What do you think about efficiency in a virtual setting for these professionals?
So first of all, let's talk about the pandemic, right? The pandemic gave accountants one of the greatest gifts they've ever had in my 30 years, and that is the gift of client communication acceptance levels, right? The client in the pandemic was okay to have a Zoom or digital Teams relationship, and because of the restrictions, of course, and distribute data digitally. Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that was the first gift, and that meant that if you capitalized on that, the client can be anywhere, not just local. They can be anywhere, right? And then with that, we were forced to home, and some firms decided to stay home. Many virtual firms decided to ditch the office and stay at home. And with proper controls and regular meetings with team members, you can have a very, very efficient firm digitally, right? Virtually. If you've got the kids running around, the dog barking, you probably need to fix that, and that's not going to work for you. You might need to go to a co-working space or whatever to get out of the house or have a space in the house that works. But you can still do it, right? You can still, by having measures, like, for example, time budgets on jobs and measuring that through the practice management system and having daily huddles and weekly meetings, having a quarterly catch up in person, you can still do it. You don't. Some people love the office and they believe that people are more efficient in the office, right? If you've got that belief, you're never going to shake it. But we've equally got firms that are just as efficient, just as profitable, have the great metrics that are not in office as well. So it definitely can be done.
So we're all still learning our way through that. So there's not a wrong or a right way to figure out efficiency. But your report does make a point in which I think most people would believe there's a lot of gains that can be had through efficiency, major.
You bet.
So that is a focus that should be for the growth of firms.
So if you look at in my career, there's been 4 massive changes that have affected the efficiency of the accounting business, and the 5th one is happening right now. Right, it started with the fax machine. Right, fax machine in a firm in the late 80s started to revolutionize how we accepted speed of data. Right. Then we went from a single computer to a computer on every desk, got more efficient. Then email turned up in the mid-90s, right? And we had one email account, a CompuServe account or something like that, right? In the firm. And then every person in the firm eventually got their own email account. Then in the sort of 2010 period, cloud accounting and cloud practice management turned up, and that's still been evolving. And that's been game changer, right? To enable a firm to go 100% paperless and be virtual if they chose. And that's 4. But the 5th one, and all those have been efficiency gaining changes, right? The 5th one is AI, right, which is happening. Right. I thought, by the way, and I was wrong on this, I thought it was going to be blockchain. It's a big one. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I thought blockchain is going to be the next one, but it's not. It's definitely AI that's going to be infiltrating every firm. It's interesting. There's a study that came out in Australia on firms that use AI had 15 to 20% higher growth rates than firms that did not. And so we're just seeing the start of that. But that, to me, is the next revolution of tools and efficiency. And as a result of this, talking about metrics, the revenue per full-time equivalent person should be going up, right? I believe we can get revenue per FTE, partners, admin, everyone, right, to around $500,000 with AI.
Wow.
Revenue per FTE, which means more time down, not necessarily charging 3 times more, but more time down, more efficiency, and revenue per FTE just goes up and up and up.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, but from your earlier story, it's important when we get efficiency gains like that through software or AI. If you track that, right, you could find that people struggle because they didn't leverage the gift of that efficiency by charging more and filling up capacity that they just freed up.
Correct.
And that's where the cost could happen. So it's like efficiency is this gift, but like the firms have to respond to it and leverage it, use it, or they're not going to gain the profit power out of the efficiency gift.
Yeah, the traditional firm wants more people, right? Every person you want is currently hired. They're hired somewhere else, right? So that's we need a good marketing objective and promise to the next team member to switch from that firm to your firm, right? So to me, finding people is a marketing opportunity because the people exist. There's an abundance of people out there. They just don't work for you. So that's the first thing. So if we can employ different process, like our 25 steps, for example, different methods, hiring different types of people, more administrators, more admin, non-chargeable people. Like our best firms are up to 40% in non-chargeable team members. Traditional firms don't want that. They want more producers, right? And we employ different software and AI tools. Then we can reduce the time by 20, 30, 40, 50%, which means we can keep the same headcount. And if we refill that capacity at a higher margin, we can double the revenue and the profit goes through the roof.
Nice. I love it. Okay. As we're ramping down here, just kind of some global perspectives. It would be great to hear from you. So we did talk about the pandemic, but I think maybe this show will come out in 2025. Maybe this is a year we can say the pandemic is over. I don't know. So it's officially over, and there are permanent results that have happened to us. Some not good, some good. A lot of mental shifting, a lot of location. We're virtual more now. What trends are you seeing as far as how people perceive entrepreneurship or firm ownership or team members What are you seeing certain patterns? Like this is a thing I see now after the pandemic I didn't see before. Do you have some of those thoughts?
Yeah. So first of all, the average partner age is aging every year. They're getting older and older every year. The young potential partners coming through, and this is a global perspective, right? The young potential future owners don't necessarily want to be owners of the firm that they work for.
Right.
Because they're seeing partners in their 50s or sometimes older still grinding it out, being a practitioner. And the younger set who are in the late 20s, early 30s looking for partnership, they don't want that, right? They don't want to be doing 2,000 and 3,000 hours a year because it's a different mindset. Like I've got 3 kids in their 20s. They're wired up differently. And so I think, I'm seeing that big time, that the younger ones don't want to be partners because what they see is not great, right? Now, that's an opportunity to fix that so you can have succession. But what I'm seeing is a bigger shift towards wealth creation through the accounting firm, where, and this is what I'd love this to focus for many more firms to say, you know what, this is an accounting business that I own, and the business should be fuel for my life, not my life. And this business should help me create wealth for my life, which it can. Not, cash out in a couple of years and someone buys me out on vendor finance over the next 5 or 10 years and living a reasonable life. No, you can create wealth, real generational wealth from this accounting business if it's structured right, if it's working well, it's a well-oiled machine, get yourself out of jobs. So I'm seeing that because people are getting older, partners are getting older, there's a focus on not just regular succession planning, because that's a problem. Young one comes through, buys the partner out because they don't want it, but changing the model to say, you know what, we can build an asset here. We can really build an asset that lives on, beyond where I want to be. So that's what I'm seeing as a thoughts of older partners, thoughts of younger potential partners, and the opportunity is, well, let's change it.
Yeah. And so those who can't grasp onto that, they need to sell or get private equity to kind of cash them out and let them go be done with this business that they get sick of, over time. So, okay. Last question.
Go for it.
All right. 2025, this can be, I don't know, maybe this can be a better year. So the economy's been kind of difficult the past few years, for everybody. U.S. economy is pretty strong, and I think a lot of other economies are struggling even more than the U.S. But for 2025, what would be, I don't know, what would you want to say to these firm owner entrepreneurs? Please start doing this. Please start thinking about this as you go into 2025. What's your message to them?
All right. I would say 3 things. Three parts to the same idea as you think about changing what you want to change. Number 1, let's create a lifelong bucket list of things you want to do in the remaining years of your life. Right? Experiences, travel, things you want to buy, charity, whatever it is, whatever floats your boat, right? A big, long, over 100 list of things, right? That fires you up, gets you excited. Number 2, redesign the business in such a way so that the business can provide all the money and all the time for you to do that, business by design, right? So think about it. And we have a 5-step process on business by design, which is about asking questions and having business rules and then making changes. And the third piece of the same idea on change is get serious about the rules that you write about your business, because it is your business partners, as in your business partners you own it. It's no one else's business but yours. You've taken the risk, as we circle right back to the start, you've taken the risk. You should be making the money. The spoils should go with you. Every team member you've got will leave, right? Just the way it goes. Who's always left is the partners. So let's redesign it selfishly, right? With business rules, how this business will operate from a partner's point of view. not a team member's point of view, not the client's point of view. Stop letting the clients boss you around, right? It's your business, not their business. So I would hope that the partners get serious about the rest of their working days, the rest of their living days, and build a business that provides the time and the money to help them achieve that.
Very cool. I love it.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Rob, thank you so much for being on the show. What's maybe one place people can go online to get your latest book, the benchmark?
If you go to robnixon.com under free stuff, there's lots of guides in there. We're a coaching business, so we coach firms that are 1 to 5 partners, over $1 million in revenue. If that's you and you're ambitious and coachable, if that's you, hit the apply now button and we'll have a chat. But there's a lot of free things, right? There's free books, there's free reports. robnixon.com is the place for that. I've got all 4 books I've written on Amazon. If you search for that, you can find those. A few dollars to buy those. But that's a good chunk of content that you can get on self-help.
Cool. I love it.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rob, thank you for coming all the way from Australia and
Sure.
coming to be on the show. We appreciate you. So take care,
Awesome,
man.
Jason.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, man.